Honest True Rhymes, Niggly Teaching Honesty, back at you. This is The Climb. So in the last episode, we talked about how I was hitchhiking on Warped Tour. And we ended at the end of Warped Tour in Portland, Oregon. So, like I had said in the last episode, I was traveling with a vendor on Warped Tour, and he had told me that after he was doing Warped Tour, that he was going to do a festival called Hempfest in Seattle. And I didn't really know about Hempfest. All he told me was there's a bunch of weed there and that I would love it. So he said that I could go with him to the Hempfest festival, but I would have to stay in Oregon for a week. So I'm like shuffling around the last day on Warped Tour, trying to like find a place to stay in Oregon, and run into this cat. He said that he might be able to let me crash at this place where they host the meetings for Alcoholics Anonymous that he attends, and that he had a key and stuff, right? And so I don't know if he got like kind of sketched out or like second guessed it at the last minute or whatever, but you know, he meets up with me and he's like, oh no man, they changed the locks or whatever, but he like gives me a blanket, right? And so I end up still kind of sleeping outside of the Alcoholics Anonymous place that night, and I was like basically living on the streets in Oregon for about a week, you know what I'm saying? Got into all kinds of cool shit, walked around the city. It was so tight. People out there were like so nice. There were like a couple of things that I did out there, you know what I'm saying, trying to survive and shit, you know, like I was like painting and trying to sell paintings and shit like that. I had like a couple $100 in my pocket still from Warped Tour, and so I went to the movies one day and just decided like I was just gonna like sneak into another movie like over and over until the theater closed, right? And so like I would like sneak into whatever movie was showing next and like straight up just like crashed in the theater, sprawled out with the blanket across the seats and everything. Got sleep, and then got out the last movie probably around like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and like people are still out like partying at the bars and shit. So I'm walking around and some cats like trying to like rap battle me and shit, and fucking it was a fun time out there in Oregon, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I didn't have my ID or my fucking bank card because I had lost it in Glenn's truck. Like, it had fallen out of my pocket right before we left town, so I couldn't get into any of the pot shops or anything. And like, this is how nice people are in Oregon, is I saw these one cats parking outside of this dispensary. I'm like, hey yo, can you run inside of this fucking shop and get me some weed? And they have to wait for like 20 minutes, right? And they come out and I'm like, yo, you want to smoke this joint with me and shit? And they're like, we don't even smoke, you know what I'm saying? So like, them not even smoking went into a shop and bought me some weed, like just out of the kindness of their heart, which was super cool. And you know what I'm saying? So like, I'm kicking it out there. I ended up like finding some cat, like some fucking homeless dude had some a fucking gang of weed actually, you know what I'm saying? This motherfucker was like, yo dog, I'll like sell you this fucking shit for like $10, right? Sells me this big old bag of weed for like $10 and shit. So I'm just out there like fucking kicking it, waiting for homeboy to come back through. He ends up coming back through, picking me up. We go to Seattle. We fucking Hempfest was fucking tight as fuck. And I was like lucky as fuck because my neighbor that lived right next to my mom's house growing up, him and his pops had been living in Ranton, Washington. It's like right outside of Seattle. And so they were living there because his dad needed new lungs. And so he was there for lung transplant, and they were living in this hotel, and it was nice place. His dad's in the hospital recovering from the surgery at this point. You know, my mom's like, yo, I'm pretty sure they're out there, hit them up. So I hit homie up and asked him if I could like stay with him for a couple of days, and he was like, yeah, shit, come through. And me and Kat had some trouble back in the day. You know, he like, you know, had a problem with drugs back in the day, and you know, he used to like steal from people and shit like that. So basically everybody in the neighborhood hated this motherfucker, and I straight up like had dreams for years about like beating the fuck out of this dude. But he got clean, and then I guess, you know, this was like, it seemed like it was his way of being able to like apologize for all the like bad years that we had fucking faced together or whatever, right? So I show up and he got, you know, steaks and all kinds of shit, and he just breaks bread, and it's so much love, you know what I'm saying? Like, Seattle Hempfest was so fucking amazing, and it was 3 days, all kinds of fucking weed, right? And like unbelievable amounts of weed, and I'm just like loving it. And I'm walking around, I'm fucking, one of the other vendors who was on Warped Tour was doing Seattle Hempfest too, and had hired me to help him with his booth. And there was like a mix-up one day. Some dude came up and tried to like return something, and I didn't know if homeboy like made returns or whatever, and I didn't even really remember homeboy like purchasing this thing from us, right? And so like homie's like distraught and trying to like pick a fight and everything, and I guess that kind of like sold me working with homeboy, right? You know, he still paid me for the entire weekend, but after the, you know, first day, he was like, nah, I don't really like need you, right? So I ended up just kicking it at the festival. I'm like trying to figure out like how to fucking make the money to get back home from Seattle. And so I'm like running around, and I'm still trying to like rap for tips and everything, and doing paintings and shit, still trying to like push paintings and everything. And it was fucking amazing, like great fucking time, so much love there, you know what I'm saying? It was like so crazy. So I'm running around the second day trying to make money, and I run into this dude who had his own little operation going called the Dope Game, and it was like all these like carnival games and shit, and you could win like crazy prizes, like big like dab rigs and skateboard decks and all kinds of shit, right? And so like he sees me and notices I got like a crazy mouthpiece on me, and is like, shit bro, I got like the perfect job for you. Like, I'll fucking set up a tent and let you fucking hook up to a microphone. You can run this tent, like you can spit if you want or do whatever the fuck you want, you know, just run this game, and then, you know, you can potentially make some fat cash. So I'm like, I'm down for whatever. I show up the next day and you know, help him out with the booth that well, he invited me to do the tent that he was talking about in Michigan at the Cannabis Cup, right? He was like, you want to go to the Cannabis Cup and shit? I'm like, fuck yeah, whatever, let's go. Like, I'm already on this journey, don't know how I'm gonna get home, and just grinding. Like, I'm somebody who like immerses myself in the situation, right? Like, can get real lost in the situation real motherfucking quick. And so I'm like, fucking survival mode, let's go, like, let's just get it, right? And so show up the next day, help him out with his tent a little bit, break down his tent. Like, he pays me to help them break down their tent and everything, like humongous fucking tent, you know. And so I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna get to Michigan, right? And so I'm like, basically the amount of money that it would take me to get to Albuquerque or to get to fucking Michigan where we were going was basically the same amount of money. And I was just like $40 short of getting there. And so I'm like at the Greyhound in Seattle, like, you know, trying to panhandle and shit, like, fuck it, whatever the fuck, like, let's get it, right? And the cat who I was trying to convince to drive me on Warped Tour makes a post, and I just knew it. I felt it in my fucking heart, like, this motherfucker got fired from his job. So I hit him up and I was like, what's up, dog? And he's like, man, I got fired. And I was like, you still trying to go fucking on a road trip? Like, I just got invited to go to the fucking Cannabis Cup in Michigan and shit, but I'm over here and I need a ride, you know what I'm saying? So he's like, I'm down, but I can't drive all the way from Albuquerque, you know, up to the northwest by myself. So I'm like, all right, you know, scrambling, trying to figure out like who can help him. My boy Ed from back in the day, who I freestyled with, was like, shit, I'm down, right? So him and Norman hop in Cat's car and fucking drive all the way back to Oregon, right? Because I had kind of like spent one evening in Seattle, kind of just like roaming the city. Fucking found this one dude, he's like drinking beer on the fucking side of the road. So I'm like fucking slamming with this dude and fucking kicking it, you know, just blowing trees and shit. And it just seemed to be more convenient to be homeless in Oregon, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna hop on this Greyhound. It's like $20 to get back to Oregon from Seattle and shit, 20-30 bucks or whatever. So I'm like, I'll meet y'all in Oregon. So I show up in Oregon that night, probably around midnight or something like that, sleep on a park bench, and then kind of just like kick it, you know. Didn't really get much sleep, so I kind of, you know, found this coffee shop that I would take naps in and shit like that, right? And so like they didn't really like bother me. Like some places are really like dicks, but this place wouldn't like fuck with me when I was like passed out on like, you know, one of their chairs and shit like that, right? And so I take a nap throughout the day. They show up, you know, that night, and I'm still kind of like not sure how we're gonna get to Michigan, but I was just, fuck it, let's go for it, right? And so like I'm out there, I'm trying to rap for tips, and there was this bar that I was hanging out at, right? And so there's this dude who's like, yeah, you know, I'll buy you guys a round of drinks or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'll hook you up with some weed later or something, because we're like out there rapping. And then I guess he just felt like we were like fun to hang out with, and he realized that we were trying to make money and that we were like gonna start hitting other bars, right? And so dude pulls me to the side and he's like, hey dog, like don't tell anybody else that I gave this to you. And he slips me like $200 bills, right? And I'm like, oh shit. And he's like, just kick it for the rest of the night, right? And so we're set, and we kick it with dude for the rest of the evening. We shut down the bar, walked to his house a couple blocks away from the bar, and he had said that like he'd hook us up with a little bit of weed, right? And so we get to his crib, and I don't know, for some reason I just started like feeling paranoid, right? He was like trying to like fucking share this like distilled water that he was like distilling himself or something like that. And for some reason I was like, nah, I don't want any water. And so I'm trying to nap so we can hit the road, and he ends up giving us like a half ounce of weed and a couple grams of wax, and just like, you know, fucking showing so much fucking love. So we hop in the car, we're smoking this fucking weed like a fucking train all the way to Michigan. Get to Michigan, and I didn't end up working for the dude who had invited us to the Cannabis Cup. You know, we got there a little too late, and it was like a blessing in disguise, because the whole fucking weekend it was raining, right? So badly to the point that the homeboy Ed even got like this little fucking infection in his feet, like in his toe or something like that, you know. It was called what was it? I don't know, they had a terminology for it, but he had to be rushed to the hospital at some point during the weekend. And you know, the Cannabis Cup was like amazing. Like the craziest part about this festival as opposed to Hempfest is like at Hempfest you could consume weed on the festival grounds, but they weren't able to distribute any of the products. So there was like all these different like pot shops there, but they weren't able to actually sell you any concentrate or weed or edibles or anything like that. They were just, you know, handing out promotional items, stickers and lanyards and bullshit like that. But at the Cannabis Cup, not only could you consume it on the premises, but you could purchase product, right? And so they have all this weed, and people are fucking handing out free edibles and giving out free dabs and shit like that. Like there was this one company who was like they created like cartridges for vape pens and stuff like that, and so you could just like taste all the different flavors that they had. They had like actual flavors, not just like weed flavors or whatever, but they had actual flavored concentrate that you could sample and shit. And so we're just getting blitzed out there and shit, right? And so we end up breaking dudes' tents down and helping him out. That's how we ended up getting the money to get to the next place we went, which was Columbus, Ohio.